Big Podcast.
This is my day every day. I wake up about 4 a.m. I'm at a radio studio a little after 5. Around 5:05, sometimes 5:10 if I'm running behind. So it's about 5 a.m. It's pitch black outside, sun's not up. I've got adrenaline. I'm excited. There is nothing more exciting to me than live radio. I love it. If there's one thing that I prefer with live radio over podcasting, it's that live element. It is that you send a signal out and everybody's listening to you at the very same time. You're experiencing the same jokes at the same time. You're experiencing the callers that may call in, the same songs. Everybody's having a collective experience. And I think there's something magical about that. How often do we do that these days? Not often. Not like we used to. Used to be all we had was radio. We didn't have VCRs and DVRs and time shifting, podcasts, Netflix, that kind of thing. You sat in a theater with people and watched something at the same time. You listened to broadcast radio at the same time, broadcast television at the same time. When I was a kid, I remember going in Monday morning to school, and I'm in second, third grade. Man, did you see the Sunday night movie? We'd all talk about it. It was a thing. And you wanted to be part of that discussion. So next Sunday, what were you watching? The movie that everybody was going to be talking about the next morning. Even if you have broadcast television now, and we still do, there's a million options to watch on broadcast. Cable television's live. There's a lot of live media that we can get. I think this is one of the things that has really made sporting popular. It's because it's live, man. You're experiencing it with everybody in the stadium. You want to see it then, not later. Who's won, who's lost, all those plays, those are in the past, man. It's that moment before you know who's going to win or lose or what the play is going to be. That's what makes it magical. And that's one of the things that I love about live radio. So I'm walking in the studio. It's 5 a.m.-ish. I was on time. I was even early. I got to hit the air at 6. But before I hit the air, I got to do all the prep, man. I got to set up the board. This thing's nationwide. So I got to link it up to a satellite feed, call the satellite, get it linked up. They test it. All right, send me a signal. Okay, I'm getting that. Everything is done via automation. And for that, I mean, when you end the segment, you do something called next event. And the next event would be whatever's in the automation, usually commercials. It could go to who knows what, but we send that to commercials. All right, test the next event. That's working. You make sure the clock is synced up because you're living and dying by the clock, man. I mean, by the second. When it is time for you to hit that button, welcome to the show. You have to do that on the second. You wait a few seconds, people are like, oh, wait a minute, is this show's going to come on? And that's what this episode is about. So stand by for that part. You can imagine being in a situation like this where you're about to hit that button, welcome to the show, and it's got to go on at the very second that it's supposed to go on. You're watching the clock. You're excited about the show. You've got all this stuff to do. It's a weird thing because you've got time that seems to move slowly. You're excited to go live, but at the same time, it's going very fast, especially if there's some kind of issue with a cable, with a connection, when the buttons is sticking. Who knows? There's a lot of things that can go wrong when you've got a live broadcast. That's the risk. And the pressure is that clock, man. You're living and dying by the clock. The clock is what's running the show, not you. It's not your nerves. The show starts when the show starts, not when you're ready for it to start. There's a show before me. You know, we broadcast 24 hours a day these days. It's no longer the old days where you go off the air, see you in the morning, and there's a test pattern. No. 24 hours of broadcasting. The show before me signs off, which means we're going to commercial break, and I've got exactly 3 minutes and 30 seconds to hit that button. Welcome to the show. Now, I talked about it feeling like forever and time slowing down. That's really when that happens. Because you're watching that thing. It's like a space launch, man. There's an 8-second delay. And I say that to say that sort of complicates things. Everything you do, you've got to subtract 8 seconds. Because what you're doing in the studio and what goes out live, there's an 8-second distance between you. It's like figuring out time zones. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I'm on Eastern time. I guess it's Pacific. All right, we're supposed to. This is why I do everything in Eastern time. And ironically, even though I'm in Central time, the studio clock, like I said, it's nationwide. You work on Eastern time. This is a radio thing. I've made it a podcasting thing. People try to do math. What time zone are you in? Okay, you're in Central. Well, I'm in Phoenix. We never change. So don't do that. Just say Eastern. Let me interview 11 a.m. Eastern, 12 noon Eastern. Don't worry about doing math, man. That's going to complicate things because somebody's going to be early, somebody's going to be late. And just wait till you do somebody with like a half time zone. And you've got those in Canada, you got those in India. Yeah, that's really complicated. Anyway, countdown's happening. I'm about ready to go live. The clock hits 8 because remember, there's an 8-second delay. That's when I'm going live. Hit the key. Welcome to the show. Except that's not what happened. It's dead silence. Uh-oh. All this stuff, except for the board itself, is computerized, by the way. So I'm thinking, well, maybe the window wasn't activated. Then I'm going to hit the hotkey on the window. Welcome to the show. That didn't work either. Dead air, man. I got on the talkback mic because the host was remote that day. I said, we got a problem. Hang on. And I'm running it through my head. I've tested the board. Everything for me seems to be working. I was talking to the host through the board before we went live. I'm talking to the network. They tested it with me. I put a feed through. They got it. Sounding great, they said. I tested the automation. Yeah, got the signal. That's great. We synced up the clock. But there's nothing. Now, look, I've been doing this for a while, so I'm going through this in my head. Back to that clock thing. It can seem like forever, but it's only a few seconds. Everything is on fire. Clock keeps ticking. Clock doesn't care about my problems. Here's a takeaway. Things are going to go wrong, man. Even on the best days, and this date started great. I was excited to be there, had a good night of sleep, got there in time to chat with everybody on the staff. But even on the best days, you're going to get a curveball, man. You can double, triple check everything, and then there's something new, something that's never happened to you before. That's why you show up prepared, not just prepared, but over-prepared. You got to know your gear. Have backups. You running a backup? I run a backup for everything. I'm running a backup right now. I use a Zoom F3. It's gathering enough data because of that 32-bit float that if you're quiet, or if it's too loud, you're going to get what you need, and you're never going to miss that moment. So that's plan B for backups. But do you have a plan B for your other stuff? I'm going to tell you what happened with this particular situation in a minute. But before we get to that, I look at this stuff as a blessing. It's the moments like this that remind us not to get too comfortable, because radio, just like life, it doesn't care how you feel. That clock, it keeps ticking, man. And it might not be your fault, probably not your fault, because things go wrong. Cords flake out. The wrong button is pressed. Who knows? I've had so many things go wrong over the years. But even if it's not my fault, it's my responsibility to get going back. And that's not just podcasting stuff. That's life stuff, man. You lose your job. All right. That's awful. That can put you in a stressful situation. It's not your fault. Maybe the company went under. It had nothing to do with you. But whose responsibility is it for you to get yourself and your family going again? It's yours. It's yours. So you got to be ready. Not just when everything goes right, for everything. And you especially got to be ready when it doesn't go right. So here's what happened. It was a driver issue. It's the most simple thing in the world. The test that I was doing, I mentioned linking up to the satellite. I was pulling off a different machine. It was an internet machine. I just played a YouTube video or something. I said, here you go. Here's the sound. Okay, cool. Comes through a different fader, not the hotkey. When we're back, fader. Didn't test that one. Tested another one. And because of that, hotkey fader had no idea that it wasn't working. Mics were working. Everything else was working. Just this one fader, just this one thing that the driver was connected to. And that was the issue, a driver. So more or less, I figured that out right away. I mean, again, it's that weird thing of time slows down, but time is also ticking, ticking, ticking. 8 or 10 seconds when you got dead air, that's a long time. It's a long time. And people notice. I'll get into that in a second because a lot of people noticed. Yeah, that was an awkward situation, or could have been. Again, been through it before. And if you haven't been through it, you're going to go through it. That's why I mentioned this, because people don't necessarily talk about this, but everybody's been through it if you've been in radio long enough. Radio, there's a saying that there are two types of people in radio: those who have been fired or those who will be fired. And you could say the same thing about dead air or any kind of mechanical or technical problem. You've either experienced those things or you will experience those things. So it's not like people don't get it. You just don't want it to happen, at least not more than once. I mean, learn the lesson the first time, figure it out, and then go make new mistakes. I reset the driver, got the board connected to the hotkey. Welcome to the show. Host starts introing. Woo, we're good. I don't know how long it's been, but it's long enough for the studio phone to start ringing. And this one actually rings. Most studio phones, if it's like a guest or caller or something like that, it lights up. This one's important. So there's a physical ring in there. Uh-oh, you don't want that one to ring, not when you're on the air. Hey, it's the network. Is everything okay? Oh, yeah. It was a driver issue. I'm back online. All right, just checking in on you. Have a good day. They got the feed. Everything's good. And I'm thinking, all right, cool. 5, 6 seconds, 10 seconds. I don't know. It was 28 seconds. That's a deal, man. That's a lifetime in radio. 28 seconds. What would you do? I got a couple thoughts. Before I share those, I've taken a couple of weeks off of podcasting, or that's what it seems like. It's maybe been 3 or 4. So we're just going to call this dead air. You haven't heard from me for a bit. I'm back. I've got a new format. Probably what I'm going to be doing is breaking up what I used to do with the audio version of the newsletter. Those were getting long. The production is a little bit more intense. Sometimes I want to go deeper into some of those stories than I can on that format. So I'm going to be breaking those down, kind of bypassing the ones that maybe it's not as important that I cover. I was kind of figuring that out. Obviously, very busy doing some other projects, including a syndicated show that I've been doing for the last 20 years, this new morning radio show. It's busy, man. Also podcasting stuff to do. Podcasting, that is really what I like. I love live radio, as I've said, but podcasting, how incredible is it that we, because I'm in this with you, man, can put something out into the world without any kind of permission, any kind of filter. Amazing, right? I love podcasting for that very reason. With that said, there's some disadvantages to podcasting. One of them, which is also the advantage, is that we don't have to show up every day. We don't have to show up every week. I mean, it's good if we can, but sometimes, man, you're just too exhausted. There's not that pressure you've got with like a daily show that's on a network and a team that's going to drag you in there every single day or every single week to put the show out. You're making all decisions. It's easy to say, I'm going to take a day off. And then it becomes 2 days, 3 days. A week off, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If you're in that situation, I think that's okay. You come back in, if you want to explain it, great. That's cool. Do you need to apologize? No, man, you're busy. You are doing the best that you can. Most listeners, they would rather you take off for a bit than release something that isn't up to standard. Way too many people do this. Sometimes you listen to a podcast. Well, what should I talk about today? You don't want to edit that out maybe? Not let people know that you're doing this on the fly like that? Not prepared? Not showing up for the listeners who've shown up for you? You may have seen this in podcasting groups. Or you may be one of these guys. Hey, man, I really need a guest. I really need a guest this week. I don't have one. Don't have an episode, so I need a guest. That's desperation, man. A couple of solutions for that. One, keep a folder of your topic ideas. You can use whatever system works for you. I like NoteJoy. And the reason I like NoteJoy, I've had it for years and years and years. There's an app on the phone. So when I'm out and about, if I see something that's interesting, I can take a photo of it to cue that memory, or I can write it down. And when I get back to my desktop, I've got this folder of all these ideas that I've got. Matthew Dix, If you know him, he's got a book called Storyworthy. He talks about something called homework for life. He's got a spreadsheet. He writes a story that happened to him that day in the spreadsheet every day. So at the end of the day, he pulls that up. Here's what happened to me today. I was on a bus and somebody didn't have their fare. Somebody gave this guy 50 cents. He was able to make the bus route. It's a story about compassion. Whatever. It doesn't have to be anything. Just write a story about your day. That's another way to take care of that. So a spreadsheet, Google Sheets, I like NoteJoy because I can put it on the mobile app and then it goes into the computer that I use when I do my episode prep. That's the first thing you can do to make sure you're not caught up in this situation. You will always have ideas, more than enough good ideas. The other thing, develop your solo podcasting skills, man. You don't want to be dependent on guests. I work on solo hosting daily. And I'm not talking about just the podcasting radio work that I'm doing. I'm talking about I have a specific podcast. I call it the Secret Podcast or the Sausage Factory Podcast. My name is not on it. I think it was under Secret Podcaster or something, or just Secret. I've done a lot of them over the years. I've probably done 3,000, 4,000 of these. Every day I show up, I read, I improvise, and I think on my feet. That gets me ready and prepared for situations like I'm talking about on this episode. What happens when you have dead air? What happens when you don't have a guest? What happens when you're at a funeral and somebody says, hey, would you mind getting up and saying something about the deceased? Maybe you got to say the blessing at Thanksgiving. I don't know. It's nice to be able to have that skill, though, not have to have a guest. I recently had this happen with a guest, a recurring guest that isn't really working out. It's taking too much airtime. So I said, why don't we get you on a segment? Just get in, get out, get some good information. You're actually going to be on the radio a lot more. You're going to get a lot more visibility in less time. I kind of like doing it with my buddy. Is the host going to be available to interview me, walk me through it? No, that's your job, man. And that's definitely your job as the host. You don't need to be dependent on a guest. A real host, and I'm not taking anything away from the great interviewers, but a real host can do it solo in addition to interviewing people. And that includes the great interviewers, guys like Larry King. You don't want to be dependent on guests. That is a scary situation to be in. Here's a big idea. I want you to keep going. You got an idea, you got the skills to make it happen. You can do this. It's not going to be perfect. Sometimes you got dead air. Sometimes something farts out on you. Good, man. Keep going. Keep going. So let me take you back to that original story about dead air. I made a mistake in that situation. Once I hit that hotkey the second time and it didn't work, of not immediately getting on the air. Like, hey, welcome to the show, doing it with my mouth. Then introducing the host. I could have done that. It would have been a fun moment. He'd be like, what? What are you doing? Oh, hey, man, hotkey's not working today. So I'm the voiceover guy now. Listeners would be like, oh, man, did you hear that today? The hotkey didn't work. They would be talking about it, telling their friends about it. Oh, man, did you hear that? David had to get on the mic. Cue the guy in. That's the opportunity. There's always an opportunity with a mistake like that to do something that, strangely enough, lands better and is more popular than if things could have gone perfectly. Mistakes are how the best things happen, man. Years ago, it's like 25 years ago, back when I was cool, I dyed my hair. Well, I tried to dye it red. Fire engine red. Manic panic. Punk rock, baby. Looked like a Focusrite Scarlett interface. It didn't work out like that. It kind of faded out. I didn't do a good dye job. It was bad as far as on paper, but I was out eating. I was actually with my mother and she saw her hairstylist. This dude I've known since I was a kid. He's like, what'd David do to his hair? That looks great. And my mom says, well, it was kind of an accident. And he said, the best things usually are. And I've thought about that because the best moments in radio, it's that mistake. It's that weird rapport you've got with guests. That joke that maybe it's a little bit dirty. I started the interview. She's a songwriter and she'd written some really deep stuff, really heartfelt stuff. And I said, I've listened to your stuff, read the bio, seen your interviews. I said, you seem like somebody that I can go deep with. And she immediately goes, stab. I said, stab. And she explained it to me. She was like, yeah, it's kind of like, that's what she said. Said the actress to the bishop. I said, okay. We had a good laugh. And that completely broke the tension. And we did go deep. We talked about songs she had written that charted that people said, no way will that become a hit. Then it became a big hit, and there was depth to it. Talking about people dying of HIV, talking about, all sorts of stuff, battered wives. And this is in the country genre, which before that was like, get your sundress on, got a 6-pack of beer, going down to the dirt road in a pickup truck. Completely stereotypical. And she said, no, I'm going to do this, submit it. The artist picked it up, ended up becoming a big hit. And we were able to get deep like that, talk about why things were the way they were, how she changed everything, and then why things are, strangely enough, back like that in country music. Bottom line is this. Those moments, those mistakes, those awkward things, if you can stick with them on the other side of that, it's cool. You got something to talk about. But you got to have the skills to do it, man. You got to practice. And that's what I'm doing. Reading, improvising, thinking on my feet every single day, doing that daily podcast, 3,000 or 4,000 of those episodes, showing up, having things go wrong, having dead air, knowing what not to do next time. You're not going to know what to do next time if there isn't this time. By the way, these mistakes, even if you don't handle them perfectly, it's not a big deal. One of the biggest mistakes I made of podcasting, well, there are a couple, kind of the same mistake, but different edge of the sword. Sometimes you'll export a show and you'll leave something out that should have gone in. Maybe a track is muted. And where's that guest? It's just me talking to myself. Or where am I? Just the guest talking to himself. And sometimes you will do something like publish raw footage instead of the edit. And there's some outtakes in there, maybe some embarrassing things. Like one of the things you're never going to hear on this podcast is you're never going to hear expletives. If I got to say a word like f*** or motherfucker or f***, cunt, bitch, you see, I beep them out. That's the point. But what happens if I miss the beep and I miss something like that? Normally what I do is I don't say anything like that on the mic. If I know the mic might be live, there's mics in the room, cameras in the room, you're not going to hear me say that. But, sometimes we release stuff. You're talking to somebody maybe after an interview. You're saying some stuff, maybe even personal stuff that you don't want to get out into the world. That's the opposite of that. You either release something that doesn't have all the audio you need, or you release something with more audio than you meant to get out. But that's how you learn, man. That's how you learn. I could tell you a million things to do. You're not going to understand it till you've actually done it. Then you're going to get it. If you've had dead air on radio, me talking about this, that's going to hit a little bit differently than if you've never had it. If you've frozen up at a live event, stage fright, if I talk about that, that hits differently than if you've never done that. Like, it's not going to happen to me. So get familiar with your equipment, do a lot of episodes, make mistakes, not the same one twice, make new mistakes, collect your ideas, develop certain skills like solo delivery. If you need help on this, bigpodcast.com/amp. That's bigpodcast.com/AMP. It stands for Audio Monetization Program. Happy to work with you. Go there for details if you're interested in that. Final thought, if you make a mistake, I told you to work with it, but even if you don't work with it, even if nobody knows, some people will know. If you get called out on it, admit it. One of the weird things about being on live radio is because the show goes on, the world around you might be blowing up because of what you did, and you have no idea. You might remember a few years ago, a woman made a really bad comment about Africans. She was making an international trip from the United States to Africa. She's in the plane for 11 hours or so, no internet. This social media post blew up. There was a hashtag. Let's say her name was Jan. It was something like hashtag when Jan lands. Everybody and his brother's talking about it. She landed. Boom. Embarrassing. Fired. World humiliation. Your live radio might be like that. Your podcast might be like that. It goes out. There's a delay in that. So what happened to me? I get off the air. I check email. We got to do some work post-show, and I've got an email sent to me, CC'd to 30 people, engineering department, What happened? What happened? Because engineering, they don't know if it's their issue. You got program directors, you got hosts. Nobody knows what went on. Just you. You got to explain it to all these people. Nobody was mad, by the way, because like I said, in radio, there's two kinds of people. The people that those things happen to and the people that those things will happen to. People are like, oh yeah, man, it happens all the time. That's it for this episode. I appreciate you hanging out with me. Collect those thoughts, develop those skills, make more episodes. Do it. That's how you get better. Again, if you want help, bigpodcast.com/amp. That's the audio monetization program. That's bigpodcast.com/AMP. Glad to be back with you. We're changing the format up just a bit. I'm going deeper. I'm going to try to bring in more of these personal stories because I do this every day. I live, sleep, eat podcasting, radio, and I've been doing this for 20-something years, man. Actually more. The first radio thing I did, let me do the math, 1991. So what is that, 35 years? Man, I'm old. Oh, man. How did that happen? It's that clock, man. Tick, tick, tick. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it's quick. Got to pay attention to it, else you're going to miss it. All right. I'll see you on the next episode. If you haven't subscribed, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. That's where you can find me. I haven't even announced my name. David Hooper is my name. And you can find me at bigpodcast.com. If you go there and subscribe, you'll never miss an episode, and I will see you on the next one.